On Paradise by St. John of Damascus, from Book 2, Chapter 11 of the Exact Exposition of the Orthodox Faith. Since God intended to fashion man after his own image and likeness from the visible and invisible creation to be a sort of king and ruler over the whole earth and the things in it, he prepared a sort of kingdom for him, in which he might dwell and lead a blessed and blissful life. And this divine paradise, prepared in Eden by the hands of God, was a treasure house of every joy and pleasure. For Eden is interpreted as meaning delight. It was situated in the east and was higher than all the rest of the earth. It was temperate in climate and bright with the softest and purest of air. It was luxuriant with ever-blooming plants, filled with fragrance, flooded with light, and surpassing all conception of sensible fairness and beauty. In truth, it was a divine place and a worthy habitation for God in his image. And in it no brute beast dwelt, but only man, the handiwork of God. In its midst God planted a tree of life and a tree of knowledge. He planted the tree of knowledge as a sort of trial, test, and exercise of man's obedience and disobedience. It is either for this reason that it has been called the tree of knowledge of good and evil, or because it gave to them that partook of it the power to know their own nature, which, while it is good for the perfect, is bad for them that are less perfect and more given to their desires, as strong meat is to them that are tender and still in need of milk. For God who created us did not want us to be careful and troubled about many things, nor to be anxious and concerned for our own life, which is just what happened to Adam. Thus, after he had eaten, he became aware of the fact that he was naked and put an apron around himself. For he took fig leaves and girded himself, although before they had eaten, they were both naked, to wit, Adam and Eve, and they were not ashamed. God wanted us to be dispassionate like that, for that is passionlessness to the highest degree. And he also wanted us to be free from care and to have but one task, that of the angels, which is unceasingly and unremittingly to sing the praises of the Creator and to rejoice in the theoria, or spiritual vision, of Him. He also wanted us to cast our cares upon Him, which is just what He told us through the prophet David, saying, "Cast thy care upon the Lord, and He shall sustain thee." In the Gospels, too, when teaching His own disciples, He says, "Be not anxious for your life, what you shall eat, nor for your body, what you shall put on." And again, "Seek ye the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." And to Martha, "Martha, Martha, thou art careful and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary hath chosen the best part, which shall not be taken away from her, namely, to sit at His feet and hear His words." The tree of life was either a tree possessing a life-giving force or a tree that was to be eaten of only by such as were worthy of life and not subject to death. Some have imagined paradise to have been material, while others have imagined it to have been spiritual. However, it seems to me that, just as man was created both physical and noetic, so did this most sacred domain of his have the twofold aspect of being perceptible both to the senses and to the nous. For while in his body he dwelt in this most sacred and superbly beautiful place, as we have related, spiritually, that is, noetically, he resided in a loftier and far more beautiful place. There he had the indwelling God as a dwelling place and wore him as a glorious garment. He was wrapped about with his grace, and like someone of the angels, he rejoiced in the enjoyment of that one sweetest fruit which is the theoria of God, and by this he was nourished. Now, this is indeed what is fittingly called the tree of life, for the sweetness of divine theoria communicates a life uninterrupted by death to them that partake of it. It is just this that God meant by every tree, when he said, "Of every tree of paradise thou shalt eat," for he is the all, in whom and by whom the universe endures. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is the power of discernment by multiple vision, and this is the complete knowing of one's own nature. Of itself it manifests the magnificence of the Creator, and it is good for them that are full grown and have walked in the theory of God. For them that have no fear of changing, because in the course of time they have acquired a certain habit of such theoria. It is not good, however, for such as are still young and are greedier in their appetites, who, because of the uncertainty of their perseverance in the true good and because of their not yet being solidly established in their application of the only good, are naturally inclined to be drawn away and distracted by their solicitude for their own bodies. It is in such a way that I think that the divine paradise was of a twofold nature, and the inspired fathers taught rightly, both those who taught the one aspect and those who taught the other. Moreover, it is possible to take every tree as meaning the knowledge of the divine power which comes from the things that have been created, as the divine apostle says, "For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made." Of all these thoughts and considerations, the loftiest are those that concern ourselves, which concern our constitution. I mean, as the divine David says, "Thy knowledge from myself is become wonderful," that is to say, from my own make-up. In the newly made Adam, however, this was dangerous for the reasons we have stated. Again, the tree of life may be taken as the greatest understanding of God that comes from all material things, and the process of induction leading from these to the productive and creative cause of them all. And it is just this that is called every tree, the whole and undivided tree that brings the only participation in the good. And by the tree of knowledge of good and evil may be understood that material and enjoyable food which, while seeming to be sweet, actually makes the partaker to be a partaker of evil. For God says, "Of every tree of paradise thou shalt eat," meaning, I think, "By means of all created things be thou drawn up to me, their Creator, and from them reap the one fruit which is myself, who am the true life. Let all things be fruitful life to thee, and make participation in me to be the substance of thine own existence, for thus thou shalt be immortal. But of the tree of knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat, for in what day soever thou shalt eat of it, thou shalt die the death. For it is of the nature of material food to replace that which has been consumed, and it is voided into the privy, and so to corruption. And it is impossible for him who partakes of material food to remain incorruptible."